Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Solfate podcast, where we talk to founders and builders in the Solana and broader crypto ecosystem.
GM.
Talking to Jeff Paul from Web Builders Alliance today. Jeff
the good old WBA.
Jeff is freaking awesome, and so is Web Builders Alliance. They're basically
For sure.
a school that is churning out just phenomenal software engineers in the Solana space. Nick, how do you feel about the conversation?
Yeah, it was great. Like Jeff, this is my first time ever like meeting him, aside from some very vague conversations on Twitter. But he gave like his backstory of how he got into, I guess, the blockchain education space, and like all of the like all of this like personal experience of all the difficult things he's had to go through in life, from having cancer and being an addict in different ways, and the fact that he's able to still run this Web Builders Alliance cohorts and this education service, I guess you can kind of call it. It's phenomenal. It's very empowering to see, I guess.
Freaking crushing it. He really is awesome. I've known Jeff for a little bit, where we both do a lot of Solana education stuff, so we've been trying to collaborate on some things, and he really is just awesome. I can't. We are very lucky, I guess, is the way to put it. To have
ecosystem, very lucky.
And frankly, some of the people going through Web Builders Alliance come out producing some of the best hackathon projects. I think there were like some of the like top 5 of them or something came from Web Builders Alliance recently. So pretty sick stuff. They do some really cool things in terms of how they structure their education system, how they sort of go from not knowing a ton of Solana to working on projects and collaborating with other people. It's really cool. It's really neat. Definitely worth a listen.
Yeah, for sure. I guess let's just go ahead and dive right in. Let's go.
Sweet. Well, let's see. I was arranging my background while Jeff was talking about how we go way back. So I can't decide if that means that I should drive this episode, or Nick, you should drive so you get to know Jeff better. But
we'll tag team it. Just we'll do it like the usual. So I guess like the big thing is like introduce yourself and introduce the Web Builders Alliance. I have some context of like what you guys are doing, and it's largely from the stance of the last 2 hackathons. WBA has really shipped, like as a community, the whole WBA community has really shipped some really killer projects and products. So I'm very curious about like how you guys structure your program and your cohorts, and what your philosophy is on helping people build in the Solana ecosystem.
Cool. Yeah, so James has heard this monologue before, so I'll try to expedite it. My background actually is not in tech. I spent 30 years as a private school educator here in the States. I was actually an English teacher, a football coach, and basketball track. And then went to the dark side when my kids were born and got into administration. And, the end for me was I was going through chemo during the pandemic, running a school remotely. And after that, I was done. But I had no idea what else I could possibly be doing. They tell you, your skills are transferable. I'm like, I don't know, So one of my former students who I taught and coached in South Florida had the same diagnosis as me and all the same treatment. And as it turns out, he lived here in Atlanta near me, and his mom heard me speak at a fundraiser for PanCan, and pinged me and said, "Hey, we know you." So he and I started hanging out a bunch, and he was really big into crypto, and he was an early Shiba Inu millionaire until he wasn't. He was. My phone's blowing up through the middle of the night about how rich he is and then isn't. But he sent me down the rabbit hole, and one of the gifts of having done what I've done for a long time and having to survive graduate school was I know how to research and study and learn. And I really loved it. And it made me feel, getting into Web3 and learning at first I tried to trade, really bad at that. anything I say is NFA because, my resume of investment is Terra, Iron Finance, and Celsius. So do not listen to anything I say. Um, but the technical side was really cool to me. Now, mind you, I hadn't written code since I wrote, Basic and Turbo in the late 80s. But I was always pretty good and comfortable with technology from an ed tech standpoint. Built a project on Polygon with a bunch of guys for a Chainlink hackathon. Through that, met a bunch of Web3 charitable projects, one of whom was Angel and Chauncey St. John, who was on Terra when Terra was booming. I decided to retire in January a year and a half ago and reached out to him and said, hey, what should I expect? I know you did this recently. Just give me a sense. And he's like, well, I don't have a job at Angel, but a bunch of us founders at Terra are thinking about building an institute to train developers really high end. There's nothing like it. And, we're losing money hiring scammers that say they're professionals. We're losing 2 months of productivity and 30 to 50 grand. So we want to be able to, in-house grow our own. And would you be interested in advising? And a week later, I'm, building the institute and becoming a co-founder. And, that's the get in part. I can certainly segue into how WBA got to this moment of, August 22nd. So we built the thing on Terra. We were on the cusp of a pretty healthy Terra during the bull market esque multi-year runway. Had our last call with LFG on a Sunday night to close the deal, and Tuesday the wheels fell off UST. So, the gift there is, we didn't get, a dollar worth of UST that we had to deliver for 2 years on. So we supported our friends in the ecosystem. Again, the founders were all people in our circle. And we decided we were going to rebrand to WBA and do any Rust-based DSL. So we got a grant from Juno to be able to do a few cohorts over there, test our model out. And, I was already emailing Chase even back then saying, I want to call. Finally got on a call with him. I knew Lily because we were talking to Osmosis as well. I knew her through that. And, she connected us with Chase after we got a little traction. And, got on with Chase. He was bought on what we were doing. And, Solana makes a lot of sense for us. It's a philosophically compatible environment. It's hyper, it's collaborative, it's let's build it, let's break it, let's fix it, let's make it better. And the investment in education on Solana is unparalleled. And to me, as an educator, that is an investment in the long term in the future. And I always say that a big part of what drives me is that I'm leaving a legacy for my kids, that I'm building something that they're going to use a lot of, and I think they're going to use a lot of Solana. So we got on Solana. We're now in our third cohort, so we started in the new year. We shipped I think 11 or 12 projects that first cohort, including entering 6 projects into the hackathon. Got some good optics on that. All but one of them are still grinding and working. Some of them have gotten funded. Some of them have had to pause because of regulation. But they're all working, and they're also working with us. Cohort 2 was great. Got closer to 20 projects. Again, a lot of them really strong. And it actually yielded us a good number of people that we thought we could launch the next phase of the Institute with the eye that we're not just a training institute, we are a building program. And so we are a dev house, and we are an ecosystem serving organization. If someone came to us and said we have a public good that needs to be built, we'd probably say yes, because that's how we're wired. So we launched our artisan group.
Have you already been building these types of things within the ecosystem, where it's someone comes to you with some idea or product or service that they want built, and WBA as like an organization, facilitates the development work and gets the product out the door? You've already done that a couple of times.
So both of our teachers are extremely accomplished engineers. And so they oversee. This actually ties in with the artisan group because the artisan group are proven mainnet shippers or proven shippers that we select from the best from the group, and we make small teams of them because A, we know them as people, we know how they interact with each other. B, we know their skill sets, so we can match skill sets up so there's not a lot of overlap. And we know what their interests are, so we can put them on a project that's in a certain vertical that will fuel their passion to work on something when it gets hard. Um, you know, Taking a step back to your question, Nick, one of the first things we built was called Lava Suite, and we're actually in V2 right now. It is getting funded. That came out of an early conversation with Tal at Solana, saying, "Hey, we need something like truffle ganache on Solana." So we built it for the hackathon, got great reviews on it, and then we're V2 in it right now, and it's slick. We got a front end guy who is elite, who worked with one of our teachers. BitPing is their project. If you ever wanted to see the quality of his work, um, and he's working on Lava. Lava is basically a one-stop shop to for developers to build, manage accounts, and test. So we are building a
Okay.
a GUI testing suite it's really nice and it works really nicely so far. So that's something that came from we would love this. We're now working on something too that I can't talk about yet, but it's pretty exciting. It's something that people wanted for a long time, and we're networked in multiple ecosystems, so we could take best practices. I had a call with my friend Will the other day. Will built a lot of the original stuff on Terra, Will Chen, and he's also done stuff with you know um, cross compiling TypeScript and Rust and stuff like that. And so he's a networked in guy that when we need to start doing some of these things, he's always happy to come in. Dean is great with that stuff. Dean's worked on Bitcoin and EOS and BSV. And he's been around a minute. Um, and you know we get asked, we look at each other and honestly say, can we do this? Is it a bigger lift than our time, considering we're also teaching and guiding 15, 20 young builders to DevNet in 9 weeks, and supporting our grads trying to go to mainnet? Do we have the bandwidth for this? That's really the only question we ever ask ourselves, is, are we spreading ourselves too thin? And we usually say yes anyway. So yeah, we do that. We've been approached by a few projects on the other ecosystems about porting to Solana. So that's an area that we could be supportive of. We actually ported a project from Algorand to Cosmos. Actually, some of our graduates are doing that. So we do. We've got some stuff coming in. I think it's going to get a little bit bigger as we go.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's
how
super
large
cool.
are your cohorts? How many
So,
students do you have in each cohort?
so we run 2 sessions each quarter, so that we could try to accommodate both sides of the world. So they're about 11 hours apart each day. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 9 a.m. my time and 8 p.m. my time. Um, and one of my teachers is in Taiwan, so his morning, our night, and the other guy's over here on the East Coast with me. We have a lot of APAC, Africa, Europe people. We've been, between 30 and 40 builder course people. We hard cap our artisan group at 12 because we want to run 3 teams of 4. Um, Last time around we had 135 applications. 80 of them attended orientation. 41 of them successfully completed the prerequisites, and 21 of them graduated.
Nice. That's
What kind of prerequisites are those? Like, those are some really good numbers. Like, especially at the rate that you guys are able to actually push things to DevNet and get a working product out. Like, that's really
well.
amazing.
Speaking, it's
What
it's
a
worth noting for the listeners who maybe aren't familiar with Coding Academy numbers and like MOOC
mm-hmm.
numbers, right? Is like your traditional like Udemy type of situation. You're gonna get like low single digit completion rates, right? Like 2, 3, maybe 5, 6% completion. A Coding Academy is gonna look similar, I think, to what Jeff just said in terms of starting it's going to be much worse in terms of finishing. And then of those who finish, the percent who are successful and go on to get a job is typically not
Hmm.
super great. And this is not me knocking on coding academies. I myself come from like a coding boot camp background, but it is very challenging. And Web Builders Alliance has done a phenomenal job. So back to
Thank
sort of
you.
Nick's question, so we can dig into like how you're
Yeah.
doing it so well.
No, I mean,
Yeah, I guess like that is the question. Like, how are you guys doing it so well? Like these are phenomenal numbers to
and it's
see.
interesting. So I generally don't worry about numbers. Nate, my partner, does. But I don't worry about numbers because I worry about quality. I believe that the quality is way more important. I also think that Solana is wired that way, which is, again, is another element of philosophical compatibility. The simple answer of why do I think that we're successful in this way is we put relationships and people first. We try to deal with each individual as an individual. We're respectful of the fact that life happens. Of the people that didn't finish last time around, 8 of them are back doing it again this time around to try to finish. Because it's not like you're either in or out. It's, look, the door's open. Life shows up for people. Things change. They need to stop. It's too much. They're not ready. Whatever million reasons. Okay, let us know. The door's open. Um, our goal is their success. Our goal is the growing Web3. We're not going to see the second an ecosystem has said to us, that's about X number of dollars per cadet. I already know that we don't want to work there. That's not how we operate. We want to have impact and in a not always quantifiable way. But yeah, it's relationship centric. I always insist that we're not going to become a fully automated program because I like to talk, as you guys are finding out. I like to connect with people. Um, I like I like the role of mentor. Our teachers love the role of mentor. The gratification of that is seeing them succeed. Last cohort, after 2 weeks, I could have predicted one of our guys would never have made it, and now he's leading one of the artisan teams because we had a relationship with this guy and we
That's
took the
cool.
time to have hour-long conversations outside of class, just helping him feel better about what he was doing and give him some strategies and learn about how he learns and learn about what he wants to do. um, as soon as these cadets declare their capstones, every one of them has an undivided attention target towards them Discord group with the whole team, that builder, and anybody in the ecosystem or across all of our network that is expert in that area to support. They have an immediate de facto full team around them. So they don't have to worry about stuff. But we do teach that other stuff. So I mean we talk about BD, we talk about project market fit, we talk about those things. We have a pitch deck session right after the cohort ends. We talk about all that stuff, but we're teaching people how to build, and that's our focus. But James, you mentioned about getting a job. That's a big part about what we want to do. One of the pain points of Web3 is, there is no linear track. Actually, there's no track whatsoever of I get in and I do this, and at the end I have a sustainable career. It's few and far between people that have jobs in Web3 that pay them a weekly, monthly salary, take care of their insurance, or give them what they get in the legacy world that make them say this is better. Frankly, the people that are so passionate about it, that don't care about that stuff because they believe in it, they're already here. They're already doing it. The people we got to get is that next phase of people that that need to have a roof over their heads, insurance paid, and pay their ex-wife, in my case, every month, to take care of their kids. Or your college student that loves this stuff, graduating with a CS degree, and their parents are saying, "There's no freaking way you're going to Web3. I just spent $120,000 for you to get an education, not for you to still live off me." So, this is stuff that we're very attentive to. We're working very hard to um, address. It's a big part of what we're doing. I mean, our artisan program, our dev house, some of the other initiatives we're working on in house are all about how do we create a sustainable future for successful builders after they're done with us formally.
Can can you give a quick summary of the difference between those programs that you just mentioned?
Sure.
Artisan program.
Yeah. So the builders program is really for people with, enough background to be able to hack. You asked about the prereqs before, Nick, and we glossed over it. The prereq is, um, at a high level, writing the code that's underneath the CLI to do some basic TypeScript actions with interacting with the Solana chain, with the DevNet. You got to actually write the code for an airdrop, not write airdrop. You actually have to create the code for the key generation and storing it, all that stuff. So you actually have to write the code that's underneath that. It gives, and we give some good scaffolded information. It's really more about can you follow instructions and debug the mistakes that we plant in there. But we get people that can do that have enough coding chops, because really at this point, if you could do that, you could get in the class and start. So if you can't, you're not ready, let's get on the phone, let's get on a call, and I'll walk you through some things. I'll send you to James's course and read through all that and get yourself ready for this next one. Because day one, we're shipping. We're writing code. We have over 300 repos in our repository of people building stuff. We don't mess around. We don't talk a lot about theory as the lead. We do, but we're not as the lead. So the difference between the courses is the builders course is really a lot of these people first time, or they haven't done anything sophisticated enough to give them a well-rounded concept of what it means to ship, what it means to deal with Anchor and Solana updated differently, and now they're not talking to each other, which, you're not done when you hit save.
Is a very real problem currently in the ecosystem.
Well, it's a problem everywhere. I mean, hitting save and saving your code is not the end. How do you do all these other things, and how do you get it to DevNet, working on DevNet? So that's the builder program. The people that are successful at that, really good at that, do it it's intuitive and they've got a good balance on it. They come to the artisan group. Now the artisan group it's exactly like that. In antiquity, you have your apprentice and your journeyman and your master, and then your master craftsman, actually, and then your artisan, your maestros, and your virtuosos. It's kind of a trajectory. And so we're giving these monikers to these groups according to that. We like it. And so the builders, the craftsmen, they build. And then when they're good at building, they could become more autonomous. They could have some creative ownership over a project with a little bit of guidance from a maestro, to get to be more self-sufficient. They're in the artisan group. The artisan is purely team oriented. We give them projects that we've been architecting and researching for 4 to 6 months, some of them, and they work together as a team. But they have to do things like you have to set up a Kanban, invite us. You have to have your weekly stand-ups and let us know. You have to. Everybody on the team has to weekly push to GitHub. I mean, these professional practices that they need, and we are my rule with them is we're hands off unless you need us. You need us, we're here. We're training wheels. Okay? But we took those training wheels off. Ride the bike. If you lose your balance a little bit, you need someone to come and tip you up a little bit. Ping us, we're there. So our support's more in giving them a well-researched PMF project with some architecture, help them get organized, and be there when they're struggling.
What is
That's super interesting.
I guess having taught at a number of coding boot camps and seen sort of the drop off from students, I often find that it's people are really excited at the start. It's tough to keep them incentivized. It's tough to keep them motivated. What's the incentive for these students to keep showing up at these weekly stand-ups that you're talking about, to keep working on these projects? Because that can be challenging as an educator to figure out how to get people to stick with it.
So it comes with the relationships with people. You got to know what makes them tick. But we're very upfront with people at the beginning. And I think, you drop from 135 applicants to 80 to 40 when you start saying things like, we are not for the hobbyist. We are not for the noob. We're not for the person who, loves JPEGs and trading memes, who wants to write code. We're not for that person. We're for the people that are serious about being a professional in this industry. And, you know, we treat them like professionals. We support them. And again, we treat everybody as an individual, and we get to know them in a way that, part of the incentive is the ambition, but part of it is the relationship. Um, you know, we don't necessarily look, these folks own a chunk of their projects. They own most of their projects. So they are getting to DevNet with, you know, with a project for our course, and they're not paying for the course. So that's a big one. The artisans, it's like, do you want to be part of something big? That's the incentive. Do you want to be part of something that we have a lot of conviction is going to be world changing? Our conviction and passion is, it needs to trickle to them. If they don't drink that Kool-Aid, it's hard for them to stay motivated when it gets hard. If they do, cool.
So let me make sure I've got this straight. So if someone's super interested in trying to like participate in one of the cohorts with the Web Builders Alliance, they go through an application. It's, I would imagine, fairly straightforward. It's like, I have experience, here's some experience that I have in the past, maybe a resume. Then of all those applicants, your team will go through, basically accept or deny them to actually participate in a cohort. And then as part of the initial round, they do as part of, I think you called it orientation, where they have some sort of code project they have to do, build some relatively straightforward code to accomplish a task. If they pass that, then they become actually part of the initial cohort to go through basically the education program of, here's how to build in Web3. And then the people that finish that then are potentially eligible to be part of this artisan group, which is the more kind of like advanced level, but it's still part of this like course curriculum structure. And then they're still kind of being educated, but it's like hands-on experience being educated, vice instead of theoretical in a classroom or virtually for that matter. And then the people in this artisan group, they're building some product that your team has basically given to them, an idea, a concept of, here's an idea for a product, built this product. You guys give support in whatever that entails. Like, you basically encourage them to have full length stand-ups and whatever that means for their particular artisan group to build their product, just like they're any product team on any product engineering team at a company. And then after completion of that, they have whatever product they built, they have some amount of ownership of that as an individual. And then I assume WBA retains some ownership. It's probably some amount of like how you guys get some revenue potentially. Yeah. And then is that like the drawn out TLDR?
Yeah, the only thing I would adjust on what you said is that, when they apply, the orientation, they don't do anything but show up, which is a huge part of what we do. They got to show up to the live orientation. You got to show up in the Discord. They got to prove that they could show up. The prereq is the code piece that they have to do. Can you follow directions and ship a little bit of code and interact with a chain, even if we kind of hold your hand on it, in 36 hours? It's a time frame. They have to push that. And they have to, hit our program that's on chain. We have an on-chain enrollment program. They have to do that all correctly and then push their code to GitHub. They just have to be able to do the steps that being a professional require. So yeah, what we're going to do with the artisans is the top artisans are going to be invited to work in our dev house. So we're going to employ these people. That's that next carrot is, we're going to employ them. We're going to help them. We help anybody find jobs. And, in Cosmos, there's 27 projects in Cosmos that are being contributed to by our graduates. So, we want to help them. Our success is their success. I say that all the time. You work hard, we'll give you all we got, we'll do whatever we can to get you where you need to be within our locus.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So you guys are multi-chain though. You guys do education and this cohort based curriculum style on multiple chains. How many chains do you guys like educate
So
on?
we don't do this on Cosmos anymore, um, and we are finalizing to do one of the move chains. We're finalizing to offer not the whole suite, but the the builders course for Sui Move.
Okay. Gotcha. Cool.
Yeah, and I mean, look, we've turned down more chains than we've accepted, and it goes back to
I bet.
we've got to feel comfortable with the people we're going to work with, and um, the in our minds, what's the long tail bet on long term viability of these chains surviving? Um, and the another piece, and I'm not going to name names here because that's not right. We could do anything Rust based as long as there's a framework. I mean, there's some cool tech out there that's Rust based smart contracts, but there's no framework. There's no anchor. There's no COSM WASM. There's no model that is a standardized model to write smart contracts and build. And we can't do what we do well um, without stretching our bandwidth beyond belief or creating the framework ourselves on those types of chains.
Interesting. So you kind of went from like Terra to anything Rust based to mostly Solana focused to expanding a little bit, back to not just Rust, but now some move getting in there. That's interesting.
Yeah. Well,
When
Move is a
when is your
Rust based
first move
language.
based?
Yeah.
When is your first move cohort?
Q4.
Okay.
We're trying to line that up again. It's a
Okay.
bandwidth thing. We got to
So
hire another teacher. That kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Cool.
yeah, you said you have what, two teachers now,
So
right?
we have two leads. We have a senior front end guy who's going to do that, and we have a number of graduates that are basically participating in the course to continue to get brush up that are TAs in waiting. And I got a very good friend of mine that wants to teach. So but yeah, I mean we're a small operation. You're looking at the marketing, BD, etc. team.
Nice. Um,
Love it.
I wanna backtrack just a second, quite a bit actually. In your introduction, you talked about chemo, your buddy that has similar diagnosis as you. You didn't mention the diagnosis. Are you willing to chat about that? Because that
Sure,
seems like a
sure.
maybe a
So I in the fall of 2019, I'm also recovering addict and alcoholic. I'm coming up on 6 years sober. Um,
awesome.
after I after I got
Nice.
sober, I lost like
Congrats.
40 pounds. And people are like, you look great. How'd you lose 40 pounds? I'm like, I'm not telling you. I just quit drinking. And they'd be like, how much did you drink? Well, enough to lose 40 pounds. So, but people didn't really know that. Although it was becoming increasingly obviously, I was going through a divorce. I was just a hot mess. And, I drove my truck into a ravine and wrapped it around two trees, and my liver had stopped working. So that was the time to give that up. I lost a bunch of weight, and then that was in September. And then a couple years later, I was still trying to get in shape, and I just started losing weight and couldn't stop. And I got itchy all over my body, and I was sick. And they couldn't figure out what was wrong with me until they, kind of same day got me into every specialist they knew. Did some biopsies and found out I had something called ampullary cancer. So the ampulla vator is the primary bile duct between the stomach and the pancreas, and I had a tumor right in there. So it was actually blocking all the bilirubin from flushing out, which is why I was sick. My liver was shot for many reasons. I was itchy and I was gray. A couple weeks later, I had a surgery called a Whipple, where they go in, they take out part of your pancreas, part of your stomach, duodenum, gallbladder, part of your intestines. 8.5 hours on that, and then 2 weeks in the hospital. Got out, went back to work. A couple months later, they said your performance status is excellent. which sounds like a good thing, but what it actually meant is they could give me the craziest chemo on the market. So I did 6 months of chemo, and that's when the pandemic hit. So I was doing chemo from my sofa. I was doing chemo and running a school from my sofa, which was actually a gift, to be honest with you. But yeah, since then
That's
I'm
wild.
clear and clean. I'm good. I mean, I still can't feel the bottom of my feet, but I'm above ground, not below it. So, all good.
Shit, dude.
Yeah,
That's
Well.
heavy.
I want.
Also technical for a completely different reason that
right?
this show's normally technical.
Well, I want to say a couple things, right? Is like one, obviously, congrats on being sober. I mean,
Yeah, for sure.
that's
Thanks.
awesome.
It's no small feat.
No.
Second of all, like, you can do hard things, man. Holy shit, right? Like, I mean, running a school is hard enough without throwing chemo into the mix, and then COVID in the mix, and that, all that stuff. So that's wild. And then I also just want to point out that it's also wild that you chose to start another school after retiring from running a school, right? Like that's it's I get that the Web3 space is different, and so there's not maybe as many administrative constraints, but that's wild, and I mean that in the best way
Yeah,
possible,
I,
in a good way, right? Is you've got some grit.
yeah, you could call it grit. It's funny, when I was young, I was hyper and stubborn. Now I've got grit and energy. I'm the same.
It's just good now, and maybe wasn't good when you were young.
Yeah, I was a pain in the ass. Um, yeah,
I'm sure much of that is derived from the beard
yeah.
too.
I say I got the circles in the beard show my age. Yeah, no, I mean it's it was an opportunity to blend two things that I really enjoy. And look, it's a gift. I get to do it. I get to do it from home. I get to do something that gives me a lot of energy. Um, yeah, it's fun. I mean, really, at this point in my life, if I'm not having fun, I'm wasting my time.
That's a great.
It's for any
Yeah,
point in
I know.
life, in
I
anyone's
think.
life. Like if you're not having fun, like find
What are you
something you have
doing?
fun and do that.
Jeff, when we first met, I think, um, I'm not gonna lie. I've collaborated with quite a few people on educational initiatives, period. But even just within the Solana ecosystem, and when you and I first jumped on a call, I I I felt like we immediately understood each other
Totally.
in one thing, and you've alluded to it many times over in this call, in talking about the importance of relationships with your students, right? Is I always start my teaching from a place of 99% of people are more capable than they think they are, and it's my job as a
Mhm.
teacher to help them believe that, right?
Totally.
um, and that was the thing that sort of in our conversation made me think like, Jeff is awesome. We need him here, educating, because I'm I'm not gonna lie, I'm not in a place where I think I have the bandwidth to teach right now. It's like I make asynchronous content for that reason. But we need people who are willing to sort of jump into that fire and say, we're going to do live teaching. We are going to connect with students on a one-on-one basis and let them know that they are capable of doing of achieving hard things. And by the way, who better to tell people that they can do hard things than someone with the background that we just talked about, right? To say, hey, you know what? Like sometimes life throws you in the fire, and you just got to figure out how to deal with it. So that's that's a little bit of a me taking the opportunity to sort of tell you how I feel about you, but also
Thanks.
let the listeners know how, who are in the Solana ecosystem, how lucky they are to have you here.
Thanks, man. That's really nice. No, I really appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, we definitely connected right away. Um, it's funny. One of the things that I get asked a lot is, what do you like most about Web three? What I love most about Web three is somewhat related to what you said, and that is, I get into those rooms with the cohorts every day, and there's 20, 30 people in that room from all over the world, different backgrounds, different races, different religions, different orientations, different socioeconomic. No one gives a shit about any of that. No one cares about any of that. We're all here. We're building together. We're supporting each other. That's what matters. It's almost this idyllic archetype of, an inclusive society. And I lived in the 70s and 80s, and I live in the South right now, and it's not like that everywhere, and it hasn't been that way. Um, that also, that makes it a little bit easier because you have a common ground with everybody. We're builders. That's our common ground.
Just here to show up, build cool shit, and nerd
Totally.
out.
That's
Yeah. The whole like Solana ecosystem. That's one of my favorite things about the Solana ecosystem in general is that it, just like you said, like people don't care about a lot of things. The one thing that we do generally care about is like, are you going to show up and are you going to like be additive to the ecosystem? And if great, welcome aboard, have fun, build some cool stuff, show it off, interact with the community. And like the other like, not to throw shade on other blockchains, it's like other ecosystems don't like have that. It's not the
Yep.
same from like this community standpoint. Like sure they have their own like community style for other chains and whatnot. But I don't know, Solana is just it's just different. It's just good
Yeah.
vibes and people being very supportive and positive towards everyone. There's very little negativity, even in like, the heart of the bear market and all the very uh, more or less traumatizing things that the ecosystem has been through the last several months and year or so. It's like people are still amazingly positive, building cool things and interacting in positive ways throughout the entire ecosystem, and it's fucking amazing.
Yeah.
I
I mean,
love it.
look, that's
especially
the.
amongst. Go ahead.
Go
Sorry,
ahead.
Jeff.
No. Give me the especially amongst. I want to hear
No,
it.
I was just gonna say, especially
Teaser.
amongst the builders, right? It
Yeah.
is just like
Yeah.
when there is division in the ecosystem, it's not coming from the people who are sort of boots on the ground building stuff and trying to make things better. Uh, those people all know each other by name and respect, what they're building and what they're working on.
Yeah. And look,
Yeah,
that I
for
mean,
sure.
you know, I use the term philosophical compatibility. Solana's home for us, and it's my favorite place because it is a resilient community. It is a community that's faced a lot of crap over the last year and a half. And they look that crap in the face and they're like, we're just going to get better. We look that crap in the face. I mean, I got to say we now, but it's that feels right to me. And I've been in ecosystems where everybody argues about everything, and it's gross. I don't. It doesn't feel right to me. Now, look, one of the other beauties of Web3 is it's like neighborhoods. You could live where you want to live and still visit other neighborhoods. I mean, I could live on Solana and I can go over and use applications and Cosmos and EVM and all that and visit all I want. But Solana's home. And, because it's where I feel most comfortable. It's the most me. I'm around people like me. I feel, James, to your point, encouraged to be myself. And these are all important things. And I mean, that's what we try to create in our cohorts is, a feeling of belonging. And then, extending that, it creates stickier developers that want to stay in Solana and build on Solana, which is important to us, So, um, that's a big part of it. It's a big part of it.
What
It's a beautiful analogy.
it is that
I
is
like
that is
I'm
a
gonna,
great analogy.
with your permission, I'm gonna keep using that. That is a phenomenal analogy.
I'm
I love
open
that.
source.
I'm a big fan of staying pragmatic, right? Not being overly dogmatic about any one thing. And so while I love Solana, I do want to ask, like, simply because I haven't explored much recently outside of Solana. Your, you've mentioned a couple times that you've been with Solana in large part because of philosophical compatibility. You're now starting, a cohort later this year with Sui. I'm curious, what's that community like? I've not participated. I've not even looked at it from afar, and so curious what it was that made you. You say you turned down lots of chains. You've accepted this one. What was it that sort of grabbed your attention there? Maybe you'll convince
Yeah.
me to take a peek.
Look, and the nice thing is this, I don't think of it as chains competing with each other, because the reality is we're either all going to make it or none of us are. I mean, I'm a big Web3 Unity kind of guy. I also think that, from a purely technical standpoint, the model on Solana is way better for some things, and I think that the Sui model lends itself to other things. I'm not going to say it's better because it's not at the moment, but their object-oriented model does have potential to be really strong in some areas. But the answer to the question is simple. We were talking to a couple of the move chains, and one of them didn't feel right to me. It's just a feel, and Sui felt right. Every time I got off a call with them, I'm like, this feels right. They just feel like our kind of people. They get us. They seem to respect our approach. They seem to be supportive openly in the way that we need, without us saying we need you to support us in this way. As a community, there really isn't. I don't have a feel of the user community yet because it's so young. But the developer community has a lot of very positive qualities in common with Solana. And that's the highest compliment I can give, because I think Solana has the best developer community. They're hungry. They're hungry. They're energetic. Their Discord is very lively. The DevRel people that are in there are very helpful. I just like the vibe. It just feels like they got a chance because they're building for the long term. I share some values with them, and I like their tech. I like the Move language. I like what they've done with Rust in making this DSL. It's cool.
Nice. That's awesome. I'll have to explore a little bit more. Well, sweet. Nick, anything else you want to chat about here?
No, that pretty much covers it. Like, I guess any last minute like plugs you want to have, like when's the next cohort going on? Where can people find out more to try to apply? Sure. and to show up to actually participate?
So we started week 2 of 6 weeks of live learning, and then a 3-week capstone window. We started that today. Our goal is, once we're finished with this group, to focus on helping them get ready for the hackathon. So we may not spin the next one up right away, like we have, but we aspire to do one a quarter. So the next one will be Q4. Our website, which is in the process of being converted over, hosting wise, actually rebuilt by 2 of our graduates. It's really nice. Yeah, I mean, our graduates all come back and they work together and they contribute, and they get cadets that contribute to them. It's very cool. So Q4 websites, web3builders.dev. Come build with us is our Twitter, with the D and the L appropriately aligned, not that dumb normal stuff. And I mean, really, anybody wants to talk about any of this stuff, you can ping me, Japper Jam, on Twitter. I talk to probably 3/4 of every cohort before they even start. We wanted them to know we're going to help you before, during, and after. And I'll hop a call with anybody that pings me and says, I want to know more. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, wow. Well, this has been so phenomenal, Jeff. Like, thank you so much for joining us and telling us everything about the Web Builders Alliance. Like I said at the top, like, I'm vaguely familiar with some of the things that you folks are doing over there, and I've seen many of the hackathon projects in the Solana ecosystem, and your numbers are incredible. You said it yourself. You don't focus on the numbers, just the people, but I think that's probably one of the reasons why you have so strong numbers and actual participation, is because you're so focused on the people, on the individuals, and supporting them as individuals and builders. And it's phenomenal. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, guys. This was fun. Appreciate it.
And being in the ecosystem.
No, it's great. It's home. Appreciate it.
Sweet.
Thanks, guys.
Well, thanks, Jeff. To the listeners, we'll see y'all next week.